Welcome to the Previously Rockhounding podcast, where we explore the world of rockhounding and lapidary from the ye olden days of the 1970s and 80s through the lens of vintage issues of Rock and Gem magazine.
This is episode 15. We're looking at Rock and Gem magazine from June 1979.
If you are a new listener here, the way this works is I read the issue, Sarah reads the issue, we don't discuss it at all, and we come together here on the podcast and share our thoughts on it.
I had some thoughts about this one.
I had high hopes from the cover. On the cover, which you can go check out at currentlyrockhounding.com/podcast, has like some very interesting like mosaic pieces, very colorful, and that
Looks
is
like they're a belt. It's a belt buckle, a couple belt buckles, a knife.
yes,
Not the normal bracelet, earring, necklace.
I would like to take some scraps at some point and do kind of some of my own mosaic stuff. I think that's like a good use for things that you might typically just be like, oh, what are you gonna do with it? You gonna dump it? So I think that'd be kind of a fun project in the future. So.
And clearly, we're talking about the idea of making mosaics now and not connected with an article because there was no article about making mosaics.
That's accurate. the
cover deceived us.
That's kind of common with Rock and Gem magazine from the 70s, isn't it?
Yes.
A lot of them, they're clickbaiting you before clickbaiting existed.
Yeah. Well, this, the last issue we looked at was January 1979, and this is June 1979. I'm not sure what happened in between, but the magazine went up to $1 from 75 cents.
Inflation.
I guess
it definitely wasn't the increase of cost of, or wasn't due to an increase in quality or
they did not
the costs associated with that quality increase.
I don't think they added any staff for helping them do a better job at making a magazine. They
need somebody to do layout and copy editing.
Yeah, it definitely felt like this issue had a lot more typos than normal. I don't know if you noticed that. It felt like a lot more. So the way the magazine pages are laid out is there's 3 columns of text or ads, and it felt like a lot more pages where it was like column of ads, column of text, column of ads, like one right after another, which doesn't make you look like a magazine that values your content.
I think as far as modern standards, these are incredibly poorly laid out. And that was kind of like my initial impression when we started reading these. Mm-hmm. And then I started looking at issues of the Mineralogical Record that are from a similar period of time, like,
the 70s.
Well, like late 70s, and I have some into the 80s that I've read. And no, the layout is good. It's a more like what we would expect out of a magazine today, and the layout and stuff, and very, very, very good. I don't know why they lay them out in such a way.
I mean, they just have a ton of ads and not a ton of content, I think, and it's like a 2-to-1 ad to content ratio. That's
true. I do like that.
There was some good ads. I mean, some were interesting.
One ad that stood out to me is there was a very small ad for a book called The Young Rockhound's Handbook, a book for the young at heart.
Yeah.
By the editor of Rock and Gem, W.R.C. Schendelhelm.
Yeah.
For $6.95, which would be $28.53 in today's money.
That's a lot.
This is a book I haven't seen before. I feel I have a very, very extensive personal library of rock and mineral books. I haven't seen this one, but you can buy it. You can find it on Amazon for $6. So I didn't buy it, but I don't even know what my takeaway, the Young Rockhound's Handbook, a book for the young at heart.
Yeah, is it for kids or is it for
I don't know.
adults?
Is it for kids or is it for people that feel like they're a kid? I have no clue. And trying to look the book up, there wasn't like a synopsis of the book that I could be like, oh, here's the description, you know?
Yeah, there was a few interesting books that were advertised. There was another one for Shendon Helm. He mentions it in his column that he put out a book called The Backpacker's Guide.
Mm-hmm.
That ad also said a book for the young at heart. So I
Okay.
don't know what he was meaning by young at heart. They just wanted to get everybody. Like, you're not like, this book's for adults.
Do we have to buy one of these? Are you young or are you young at heart?
What if you're not? You're just old.
Old and not for the old and grumpy.
Yeah. There was another book called Pronouncing Guide to Selected Rocks and Minerals. And it said there was 1,300 names of things and how to pronounce them.
I wonder why they have such a small number of minerals.
Just the most popular. I thought that was a good idea.
One thing that I have found personally useful is the pronunciations that are on Mindat listings for specific minerals. Like, oh, okay, this is helpful. Some of this stuff, like, it's not intuitive. I look at them and
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I would have a guide, maybe more than 1,300, but I would have just like a reference book where it just says how to pronounce things. That's useful.
I wonder if some of the latest. So every 4 years, there is a new book comes out. I don't have any of these that have the latest. It's the latest like directory of accepted minerals, and I think they're at like 5,800 and something. I wonder if that has like the phonetic spelling of them as well.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't know. Some of them are very long and I don't know.
Yeah.
There's been some recent minerals found that have like, I don't know. The name form is in Russian and it has like 18 characters. I'm like, I have no clue. Where do I even start? How do I even make these sounds?
I need this guide.
Maybe. There was an ad that stood out more than probably most in this. There was a full page ad for Lortone, which you gotta like see this ad. This is a paneled cartoon ad for Lortone called Lortone Theater, the do's and don'ts when picking a combination starring Lefty Wrong. And
I didn't even notice that it was an ad. I was like, oh, they're adding comics? All magazines have comics, basically. It's about time.
so this is it's a 5-panel cartoon, and it depicts a guy breaking into a safe like a burglar. He's getting caught by the police and going to jail, and says Left was the type that liked to live dangerously because his name's Lefty. So Left was which, it's very confusing. He had a long record of picking the wrong combinations because they're selling a combination lapidary machine, which it's like the 6-inch trim saw, a couple of wheels, buffing wheel. His biggest problem was not knowing when to stop making the same mistakes over and over. Now he's locked in because of all those wrong choices of combinations he's made in his life. But had he picked the Lortone combination, this wouldn't be. You don't have to be a Mr. Wrong. Pick a Lortone combination.
It's quite the idea. Quite the concept.
Yes.
Comic about a guy failing to pick a safe combination and going to jail. And you're using that to sell your... I mean, Did they even say anything about their combination units?
No.
They don't have to.
quite the like harebrained market. Like, okay, we're selling a combination machine. What else has the word combination in it? How can we generate a cartoon around that?
I mean, it's good because it was different than all the. I mean, if they had just had a picture of their machine and been like, Lortone does it best. Our machines are better than all the others. Check them out.
I wish I could have been sitting in the room when they were like hatching the idea of this ad.
Yes. I mean, it worked though.
Yeah, I guess it did.
I
It stood out
looked at
to me years and years later.
Yeah. Sticking with books, there was another book that I thought would be useful if someone was selling it now. It was called Dig Your Own, 285 Nationwide Fee Digs. I thought that'd be useful to have. I've never really seen something that puts everything together. I've seen like state by state.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some regional. We have like some regional
I mean,
things.
it changes though, so
Yeah.
it's hard to put a book out. But
There,
I'd buy that.
there was an ad from Kingsley North, which this is the first time I've ever seen an ad for Kingsley North. I don't know really their origin story, like when they became a business. Kingsley, for those of you that don't know, they're a company that's still in business today, and they make some of their own products, but they're also kind of like a reseller of everybody else's lapidary machines. So, first time seeing one of their ads, and it was funny because it's an incomplete ad, right? It's like an ad that's kind of like business card size, and in the corner of it, there's like a whole bunch of like diagonal lines, and it just says name, street, city, state, zip, instead of putting their actual information in the lines. Like they're like
It's bad.
left their contact out, which I thought
Did
was
somebody who runs the ads for Rock and Gem like saw that and printed it and was like, I don't like them. Let's just like they could have just not had those lines in there, like. But they're like, no, we don't want them to succeed.
I thought that was funny.
I feel like that's on purpose. There was another offer that I thought seemed like a good offer. I would take them up on it. It said free Lake County Diamond with purchase of directions to find them, $1. Thought that was a pretty good deal.
The Lake County diamonds are actually just quartz.
That's what I assumed. But still, I mean, that seems like a good business. You're like,
Yeah.
$1, I'll send you a sample of it and where to get more.
I think that
seems like
that's
good.
pretty good.
That's a good.
Well, so if you have ever spent any amount of time looking at Facebook, you see these like scammy kind of like hobby related t-shirt ads where you're like, warning, slow rockhound, and it's just like, they could take these companies, they'll take that and they'll make the same thing for like woodworking and make it for like
Yeah.
every hobby you could ever imagine.
Every hobby, every occupation, every star sign.
Mm-hmm. Well, I kind of think of that as like a modern thing. But wait, I'm wrong. There was an ad in here selling like a generic Rockhound t-shirt.
Yeah, there was 3 t-shirts.
Yes. And I was just like, I can't believe...
And what was the designs on them?
There was like a geological one.
Oh, there was a trilobite, and then there was a like rockhound, like it was like a stick figure.
Yeah.
Like almost like a cave drawing of like a person with a pick. And then the third one, like you couldn't see.
It was like a beach.
Oh,
like
I couldn't even see what it was because they put them like fanned out. The t-shirts, they didn't put them separate, so you couldn't fully see the designs. Yeah. I wonder what else they had, that like caveman guy, what else is in his hand for the other hobbies.
Generic shirts.
There was a non-rockhounding related ad, and it just said, to work to play, to school. Let's pool together, America. Asking people to carpool.
Yeah, carpooling was started to become a thing then. I mean, fuel crisis of the 70s. Even still today, like sometimes you'll see street signs where they're like, there's a phone number that you can call for like carpooling.
Yeah, does anyone ever do that?
I don't know. Maybe we should try that. I don't want anybody
You
in
don't
my
have
car.
anywhere. I don't think you use your own car.
Yeah, that's the whole point. To be like, I
Sometimes
work
they have,
across
like, a
town at the
van.
factory, and you work across town at the factory. We don't know each other, but we work the same shifts. And this phone number, we call it, and they can like connect the dots between us. And like, we live in the same neighborhood, so one week I drive, you come over to my house, and
And-
we drive together, and we share in the cost.
Yeah, I know what carpooling is.
But that's the
thought that I've
that's the
seen
idea.
him with like a city van, like they give you like a big van to use or something.
No, it's using your personal.
Yeah, I don't know why anyone would want that. You can't imagine someone with a nice car is like, I need to save 50% on my fuel costs or more if you have more people.
Yeah.
That's not the person whose vehicle I would want to sit in. Yeah, carpooling.
Did you have any other ads you wanted to talk about?
There was an ad for the nation's largest supplier of named petrified woods in Prineville, Oregon. You don't really see people identifying petrified wood much.
There's a couple of people I know
Yeah.
of, but it's definitely not like.
No.
Well, I mean, most people don't really do anything with the identification to begin with, so.
I'd still be interested in that. There was an ad from the Department of Parks and Tourism in Arkansas. Mm-hmm. It said, free 1 pound carat diamond. And then it said, a Texan walked away with it. Who will be next? So you're like, whoa, free oh. Gotta go to Arkansas and find it. We've only seen Oregon so far.
Mm-hmm.
Now Arkansas. There was a lot of ads. I had a lot of ads in here.
Well, I have one more that kind of stood out to me. My slab saw. I have a 14-inch slab saw in my shop, and it's a kit-built saw. So back in the day, there was kits that you could buy for these. And I don't understand why this doesn't exist now. And I've been looking for one of these ads, and I finally found my first kit-built ad. So, Mohave Industries, they had a slab saw kit, and you could get it in a 14-inch, an 18-inch, a 20-inch, a 24-inch, and a 30-inch. So they essentially they give you all of the components, the internal components. They send you all of the hard-to-find parts, and you add your own motor, and you make the metal housing, which I love that idea. So if somebody did that right now, it would be so great for people. Like, you just source all of the bearings, like, you have the plans, you know.
You have the internet to just buy everything from your house. Basically. Don't you?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of, like, what if you don't have some of the tools needed to manufacture, like, a vise, you know? So, like, some of the stuff you would just put together a kit of the components.
You get the more unique things and you supply the generic things. But I mean, those generic things you can also just buy from your house. So I would think those would be popular because it's easier than ever to be like, I need this motor, I need this other thing, I need this other thing. And you're like, cool, it'll be here in a couple days. You don't have to like drive around to places or.
Yes, I wish a company would start making kit saws. I think that'd be great. It'd be great.
Do you think we're going to see more ads for kit
I think
stuff
so. Yeah, I
in
think
the
all throughout
80s?
the 80s, so we'll start to see some ads for that.
Another ad that I noticed that we'll probably see more of, it says computers and gems. And the word gems looks like Tetris blocks or like Mario blocks. And it says they use this company, American Faceter. They use space age technology to make their sophisticated products with computers combined with seasoned craftsmen. I'm like, sure. Fancy computers.
I don't think they... What computer is on that faceting machine?
No, they use computers to make the machines. Space-age technology to make the machines.
Definitely some marketing going on there. But we've seen that before in reading these, like some space-inspired ads and stuff. So...
another space-related ad was an ad for a 2-carat Jubilee cut moonstone. 2 carats is really small, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like $40, which I didn't look up how much now, but it seems expensive.
I mean, it depends on the cut.
Yeah. But the moonstone, I looked it up, is the Florida State gemstone. The moonstone is not found in Florida, but it was made that to commemorate the moon landings. That doesn't seem... That's not a good story.
No, that's kind of not. A lot of states, their state rock is kind of like a interesting story. There's a old issue or copy or whatever of the Orban, and they talk about the origin of the state rock of Oregon, which is Thunder Egg.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like an interesting story.
Versus, hey, a rocket touched the moon and it shot off from Florida. This thing is called moonstone. Moon. Let's see. I thought it was interesting. There was an ad for the mineralogical record.
We've seen a couple of those now.
Right. But this one, they said you could get a year's worth of issues for $13, or you could pay $24 and they would send you all of last year's issues. Mm-hmm. And I know we've seen ads for Rock and Gem trying to sell back issues. I don't really see that now. I mean, is magazine printing more on demand, or it's cheaper? So they're just like, we didn't sell it, just throw them in the trash.
I mean, magazines are less culturally relevant now than ever before. Like, and that, like, people don't value them. It's not like, with so many good sources of information, like, it's not like your go-to. You're not like, I need a project. Let me get this month's issue of Rock and Gem. Yeah. Like, very few people, I think, do that. I know it's an impossible thing to see, but I would love to see a graph of Rock and Gem magazine's annual subscription over the existence of it. Like, how many yearly subscribers did they have? Like, I feel like, we haven't read any Rock and Gem magazines. These are the only ones.
From today, you mean?
Yeah, from today or in general. Like, the only ones that we've ever read have been these old ones. So, but I have heard and seen things online where people talk about, like, the decline of Rock and Gem. Like, the ones you get today are not that good.
I mean, I've been on their website, and it does not look like a website for a professional publication. It's a really bad website.
Yes. Yeah, I agree there.
Let's see. I think this is my last one. I mean, there's just so many ads in this issue. A lot of new ones, I felt like, but maybe it's because we skipped. It's been 6 months. There's an ad for wax pattern rings. That was a ring, and where the part that's above your finger was your name. Which, I don't...
Sure.
It said it's the modern engagement ring.
I don't think that was ever the modern engagement ring.
You're like, here's a ring with your name on it, but it means we're engaged. I don't know. All the examples only had 4 or 5 letters in the names, too.
Yeah, what if you had a really long name?
Yeah, I don't know. And it was, like, flat on top. So if you had a really long name, it's like... You wouldn't want to... You'd have sharp edges, and you wouldn't want to have contact with anyone's face.
How would you feel about engagement brass knuckles. So you have a long bar that you could have your
Yeah,
name
you
in.
want to put like your initials of both the couple on it or something, not your name.
I don't know.
It's weird.
So that's all of the ads that you have.
That's all for ads.
Well, getting right into the columns, the glory hole, which is the editor's column, just had some. I didn't get much out of it. Basic corrections, updates, nothing really important worth mentioning there.
They did mention, I don't really understand why it was important, but they said there was a big show in Tampa and there was a show in Georgia, and they're like, oh no, they're on the same weekend. But like, I mean, they didn't say where in Georgia the show was.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's probably, I mean, I guess Atlanta, and those are like 6 hours apart. Like,
different markets for those.
yeah, well, who cares? Like, I don't know. Is that really the same market?
I mean, that's like saying maybe it's the problem is the vendors.
Yeah.
Like, there's only so many people doing the vending circuit. So if there was a show in Spokane, Washington, and Seattle, Washington, same weekend, you can't be at both vending.
True.
So
that show was like, oh no, they're the same date. But then, like they do in each magazine, they had the show dates, and I looked on the show dates and to see if there was anyone that were also on the same date and similar area, and there was 2 shows, July 14th to 15th. One in Wissahickon, Maine, and the other in Perry, Maine. And those are like 3 hours apart. They didn't seem to care.
shows are going to overlap.
I thought it was funny because they were both the 11th annual. I feel like there must have been some like splintering happening, because how many people are in Wissahickon, Maine, Perry, Maine? It's not even like the main cities.
I see what you did there.
And they had an ad for a show in Australia, which I wonder, does Rock and Gem have international distribution, or are they trying to tempt people to take an Australian vacation?
I have no idea. The Frantic Fumbler, this issue, I thought it was pretty good. He discussed, the Frantic Fumbler, I feel like his columns are either really good or just kind of like, why does this exist? And I thought that this one was pretty good. He discussed some of the different things that you want to take into consideration when selecting different lapidary machines, which that's a topic that's really good that hasn't been discussed up till now that we've seen. Like the ability for the machine to do the job, the physical and space requirements for it. I mean, obviously you don't buy a machine that doesn't fit in your space, the cost of it, the operating cost of it long term, different things like that. And it's an interesting topic that rarely people talk about. I mean, unless of course like your shop is ultra tiny, and then that's like the deciding factor for everything that you do. But people, we've talked a lot about the cost of these things because it's very prominent. We're looking back into the 70s and we adjust stuff for inflation. Operating cost isn't really a thing that I know how to calculate. Like, what was the cost of the cutting oils back then? What was the cost of electricity, right? Like, we have kind of an idea of that now, but that's not really a thing that I ever really factored into. Because, I mean, the cost of cutting oils today, the cost of electricity, I think is relatively cheap to the hobby, but they definitely mentioned it in here, like, the cost of operating, which that's not really a thing I factor in.
Yeah, but also like the cost of the wheels or the pads and all that stuff is can be significant.
Yeah, the
or
expendables.
The cost of the blades.
Yeah, I think the cost of expendables, but even still, I mean, I think it's relatively low per, I don't know. Just my take on it.
It was a little bit uncharacteristic of the column to be like, here's actual good advice and things to think about versus like, I took the night before Christmas poem and I changed it to be about me trying to finish my gifts.
Yes, those are very different subjects. The shop talk might have been the most pointless shop talk to date. There's literally no reason that this column should have existed. It was all about how you handle things, like your cabs or like a faceted gem, and how you use tweezers to do that, and not your greasy fingers.
Also said don't drop them.
Great advice.
Don't touch them without permission.
Don't set your shop on fire. Don't hit everything in the house with a hammer. Do you need to be told these things? Or is it just implied?
I don't know. The shop talk really goes back and forth between like really basic, obvious seeming common sense versus like more niche specific advice.
Yeah.
This one was.
I mean, one of the shop talks that we looked at, it was about building a portable jeweler's bench, like a little, like, you know, with like a little diagram and stuff. I'm like, oh, that's really good. Like, that's cool. And then they're just like, they followed up with, don't put your fingers on these things. Your fingers have oil on them. Like, what are you talking about? Nobody buying this magazine and reading it would be like, huh, I never thought that my hands could be dirty. Up until this point in my life, I've never even washed them. Like, come on. That's crazy. Craziness.
I think that's it for the columns. On to the articles, right?
Yes. And the first article that we're going to be discussing is Make a Pressure Caster. The parts are readily available and construction is a snap.
I didn't have any comments on this one.
So, if you open up this article, it looks like you're making a pipe bomb. That's exactly. It looks like there's a pipe bomb, and there'll be a photo of it up on the website. But yeah, so it's making a pressure caster for the Lost Wax casting of metals. And I don't know a whole lot about pressure casters, but I have built many things in my life, many different machines. I've constructed a lot of things. So the article was rather detailed, which that was good. And that's about all I have to say about it, because I don't do silversmithing, lost wax casting, or pressure casting. But I do recognize a pipe bomb when I see one. It definitely looks like a pipe bomb. It's like a short piece of pipe with like two caps on it. It's like if you were to like make a prop for a movie of a pipe bomb, like all it's missing is like a giant comical fuse coming out of it.
Yeah, I didn't have any comment. I didn't really. Okay.
Well,
I didn't know what a pipe bomb looks like, so
now you do.
I'll have to go back and look at the article again.
Moving right along, we'll jump right into a field trip. Palin Pass, California's Packer Wells area, is almost untouched by rockhounds.
I felt like this was low on the rock content and high on the just general landscape description, which it sounded really pretty. The picture looks really nice.
Yeah, so it's a field trip report from Southern California. That's where we're talking about. And, I mean, it was fairly good, but it was definitely one of the more descriptive.
Descriptive in terms of, like, their trip and what, like, it was not descriptive in the rock.
Yeah, so, I mean, they made it sound to be, like, very adventuresome, like a very adventurous trip. They did find some Criscola quartz, marble. I do think they may have built it up a little bit with statements such as General Patton's army of the desert trained here, and you can still see the tracks of tanks and huge four-wheel drive trucks and other heavy equipment. Like, okay, what? Sure, I don't know. And then
what is?
And then they said, beware of undetonated mines and shells. Like, they really made it out to be this kind of like hardcore expedition into the mountains. Like,
It's like,
is there any record of General Patton's army training there? And would in my experience, like being out in the desert and stuff, you like drive around in the desert and you like do stuff. The desert like really can recover quite quickly because of wind, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, that's about.
It looked pretty where they went.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Southern California is beautiful. Pretty much everywhere that you go up in the mountains down there, like, it's gorgeous.
But it wasn't heavy on the rock content, which is kind of the point.
Yeah. Did they find, like, how was the quality of the material that they found?
I mean, they
Was it-
described like varying colors of marble, like white, black, like what?
Yeah,
What
tell me the
just tell me the colors.
yeah,
Yeah.
you got to be a little more descriptive. You can't just be like, okay, we found rocks of different sizes, qualities, and colors. Like,
Yeah.
wow, could you be less descriptive with that? More time on the rocks, less time on the landscape.
Or just make your article longer because why not? I mean, I don't think they don't need the content. They need more pages for more. Every page is more ads. So,
Well, moving right along, we have an article from everybody's favorite writer, Easy Necklaces. All you do is glue and dangle. This was a single-page article by Dixie Douglas. Glue and dangle.
yeah, I mean, it was just that's what it was. Like, you take your little tumbled stones and you glue them and you attach that to some chain and you attach that to your main chain.
So this was, yeah, I mean, it was a slightly, I mean, there is some differences here from some of the other ones where she's like, just glue these things
Yeah.
together. So you take your pre-existing necklace, like the chain, you know, we're not
Yeah.
making anything here. You're buying it. You're buying the chain. You get some finding caps, and you take your little tiny stones, like the pieces out of your tumbler that you're like, what in the world am I going to do with these? You glue the finding caps onto the rocks. You have some split rings. So like split rings like you'd have for like your keys, you know? And then connect little pieces of chain so it's like a necklace with chains hanging from the necklace with stones on those. So it's all like a dangly necklace. Yeah, I mean, it's really simple. I didn't think it looked half bad. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
Alright.
that, sure. What are you looking at your phone for?
I looked up Dixie Douglas, and she seems like she was a very nice lady. She died in 2013. It says she grew up in Missouri, and one day she went to the bus station, and a bus said it was going to Boise, Idaho, and so she was like, that's where I want to go, and then she lived the rest of her life in Boise, basically. She was a stay-at-home mom. But it also says she was her husband Lloyd's helper in their family-owned rock and jewelry shop, Dixie Star Products. It sounds like she was pretty involved if they kind of named it after her, and she has all these articles.
Are you spoiling the future when in the 80s we see that there's Dixie Star Products?
We already saw that. That was like our first introduction when it was making something with the
that's
very...
right, that's right,
It was like
yeah.
fish scales, and I was like...
I remember the fish scales.
She sells them. I mean, she seems like a very... It says their family like to go for Sunday drives, rock hunting, campouts. She was a den mother. She did canning, printed photographs, had a dark room. She entered cakes into the Idaho State Fair, winning ribbons.
Is that still a thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I had no idea.
Yeah, so she did a lot. She did a lot of stuff. She seemed like a nice lady.
I'm sure she was. I still don't like the fish scales.
Yeah. Maybe she was just. Maybe her husband was like, I got a crate of fish scales for the rock shop. And she's like, okay, I'll figure out something to do so we can try to sell them. She was just assisting.
We'll go with that as the background story there. Have another field trip. Wood, Wonderstone, and chicken tracks in eastern Nevada. The rocks are strange and beautiful.
No, this is a place that we've been to, but by the title, it did not seem like anywhere we had. It doesn't match our experience going there, really.
I never see a rock and I'm like, strange. It's never like a thing that I think.
Yeah.
So it's about a couple's adventure in McDermott, and McDermott is right like the border in southeast Oregon, down there, right there in the corner.
Nevada.
Yeah. Oregon, Nevada. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I thought it was a pretty, it's neat to have the experience of going somewhere and then read about somebody's experience decades prior. So it's very, relatable for me. And just like the people in the article, we didn't have enough time to properly explore the McDermott loop, which basically there's just like a big loop out there, and there's like little roads jetting off into the desert, and you can go explore and find material.
They only had one day, though.
That's not enough time.
No.
I can't, off the top of my head, I want to say the loop road is like 25-ish miles. So this is it's a big thing. It's not just like one little spot. Right. It's like huge.
Yeah. So they say they're finding petrified wood and Wonderstone, which, well, the Wonderstone isn't what I think of when I think of Wonder. Or was it? No, the chicken tracks. The chicken tracks it was like a ash, like a compressed ash, and in the middle was like jasper. It looked like picture jasper, kind of, with the lines.
So we did get some of that when we were down there. But I don't think people don't call it
chicken track. It didn't really look like, I didn't really understand the connection. Like, I think of a chicken track like the footprint of a, like, not like what is supposed to be like their beak. Like, it was just like a line. Like, oh, the chicken is going in a wait, like not a straight line. They're meandering. Chicken track.
Yeah, I mean, there's like other. Usually, when people refer to stuff like chicken track or whatever, it'll be like a radial pattern of crystal growth in a host rock. Like, there's a whole bunch of different cases of that. I don't. This is kind of the problem though with some of the common names for rocks. Like, it shifts over time. Like, you want to distinguish your recently acquired claim, and you're like, time to generate a fake name for stuff. Like, you want to be like, take amygdaloidal basalt and market it. So you're like, Galaxy Stone. And you're like, okay, it already has a name. But, that's common name, trade name is a thing that it's hard to look back on. It's almost like the same people that make the pronunciation guide we need like a timeline of common names.
Yeah, I mean, there's been stuff that's advertised, and I've looked it up on Google, and I don't find anything.
Yeah. Who knows what they're really talking about.
Well, you can't find what it was.
Well, I think if you go to McDermott now, you need 3 to 4 days on site.
Yeah.
To really kind of get your bearing of
I mean, when we were at the opposite end of mostly where they were more on the western side, and we were more on the northeastern side.
Yeah.
So we weren't even in the same, because it's so big.
We need to go back. We need to go back to McDermott. McDermott trip summer 2023.
In the article, they said they found a 5-pound agate, and it took them 10 minutes to dig out.
Yeah, I didn't really get that.
That's a really long time for 5 pounds. We were finding, I mean, how many pounds was some of that stuff? We were finding it was literally on the surface.
Yeah, I mean, we saw one petrified log where it had to have been like thousands and thousands of pounds. Like, stuff was big.
Yeah.
And it's like, what
are you doing spending 10 minutes digging out a 5 pound? Why did that take so long? Big. Yeah, I thought that was weird. So next we have the title article. Is that?
Yeah, turquoise trends.
Not the title, the cover article.
Yeah, turquoise trends. They're away from tradition and towards colorful modern.
So it's just kind of a general information about turquoise and what people are doing with it now and the market on turquoise. And
yeah, they talked about some of the rise and fall of cheap junk turquoise jewelry, which was, I mean, anytime something's like trendy, people are going to be trying to capitalize on in any way possible. But yeah, they're talking about the flood of cheap knockoff turquoise jewelry that was in the market in the mid 70s, because we're 1979 here. And then they also mentioned the current trend of geometric inlay work, which they didn't really have any good examples of, but I kind of...
what's on the cover?
I think that's the implication of that, but like obviously like a knife handle, like some of it, I wouldn't say that's geometric, although it is rectangular.
It's not a lot of turquoise in it either.
Yeah.
Oh, is this turquoise?
Yes.
Oh, still not a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to connect with an article about like jewelry trends of the 70s.
Yeah.
And I mean, I got the frustration. Like, it seems like the author is really into turquoise. And I mean, even today, there's like, you can get really cheap, junky turquoise jewelry. Like, but it was very popular at that time. So
they said in the article, it said, thanks to the Sharpies who really flooded the market with junk. Have you ever heard the word Sharpies used like that?
No. Is that a derogatory word for somebody?
Just a dishonest and cunning person.
It sounds like you looked it up.
Yes. I've never seen anyone be like, oh, the Sharpies.
Yeah, I don't know.
Never heard anyone say Sharpie. It's also like a boat. There's a boat called a Sharpie.
I can think of a felt-tipped writing utensil.
Called what?
Called a Sharpie. Okay, well, I will
learn a new word.
I will bank that for next time I need
confusing people.
Yeah, to confuse people. Was that all of your thoughts on the turquoise trends of the mid 70s? Mm-hmm. So the next article is kind of a fake article because it's kind of an ad.
I didn't get this. It felt like an ad.
It isn't. Yeah. So
it's called
The Ultimate Collector? Is that the one? Yeah. Okay. So The Ultimate Collector, it's about this guy at 80 years old, has over 16,000 specimens in his museum. And it was like an article. It's listed in the index as an article.
But it was like what?
Couple of paragraphs,
sixth
maybe?
of a page. Like it was a very small article.
But basically, it's just like, oh, he's selling some of his collection.
Yeah, it said he has duplicates in his collection, and those can be purchased. Call him, and it had his phone number.
16,000 sounds like a lot of specimens, but it is absolutely, absolutely not a lot of specimens. How many rocks do you think we have?
Individual rocks.
Individual rocks in the house. Good, like the good rocks where we're like, cool.
A lot.
Thousands and thousands and thousands.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at thumbnails and like micro mounts, I have a little like kind of box of 10 trays, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's like 16 inches square. And in that, I can put 1,400 micro mounts into just like this like one little space. So the idea of having 16,000 specimens, not a lot of specimens. Like, we definitely, it would be fun. You want to go around and count every rock?
Well, you're going to catalog all the big ones, right?
Yes,
This
but
winter.
you know, like get a clicker and all the ones that are in a jar.
We'll take 5 jars and we'll count, and then we'll take an average.
Anyways, you know, they made it out to be like, oh, he's super impressive, and maybe 16,000 museum grade specimens. I highly doubt that though. Yeah, I'm not a fan of these like article ads where I'm like,
I mean, maybe they're like doing him a favor. Like, he's like, I better sell them before I go. I thought it was interesting that they would like print his phone number in the magazine. Like, now where the sense of privacy is so flipped now. Like, you can't imagine you putting your phone number in a magazine.
Unless it's like a business
yeah,
line.
obviously a business, but this is like an individual. A lot of field trips in this magazine. So, I mean, the content was good, but like I said at the beginning, the reading experience was less than good.
I agree with you.
This was a good field trip.
Utah's amazing plateau. It's a forbidding place unless you're an adventurous rockhound. Are you an adventurous rockhound? What's the opposite of adventurous?
Sure.
You're a sit-at-home, do-nothing rockhound?
I don't know. What did that mean in the 70s? Now it's like you're an eBay rockhound.
I don't know. I mean, it's all kind of adventurous. Like, we've certainly gone places that we've like pushed the limits of our vehicle. We've gone very remote places. I mean,
Yeah.
the very nature of rockhounding is adventurous. So, so this field trip was about an area east of the Capitol Reef National Park, which is pretty much, that's like basically like central Utah. It's like south central Utah, where you can find agates, jasper, and petrified wood. But that's all, like the running theme of Utah is like agates, jasper, and petrified wood.
Yeah.
Like, they have a lot of that there. Like, I mean, they have a lot of other stuff, obviously, a lot of like micros and different things, but those are the big 3 in that are very much in abundance there. So the article, it also had a little map of the area, and we've talked about maps extensively at this point. So the article had this little map of the area, and one of the identifying features on the map, do you remember this? Did you see?
The tree?
Yeah, a large shade tree in a parking area with 2 trash barrels. Like, so I'm imagining like 2 80-gallon drums, like, you know, lid cut off or something, and they're like, that's one of the identifying features of our map is the garbage barrel.
I mean, maybe there wasn't a lot of garbage barrels.
But you gotta not have stuff like that. That's like, take a right near the old broke down truck. Well, what if the old broke down truck's not there anymore? Like,
They're just thinking you're going to read it and go there now. They're not like, somebody's going to read my article in 5 to 30 to 40 years. They're not thinking that. They're probably like, they'll have better technology in the future. I don't need to adequately describe this.
we should go. I mean, I wish we lived in Utah right now. We could go and check to see if the barrels are still there.
You think we could find it?
Yeah.
Just do it on Google Maps.
Yeah, we'll see a little dot of a trash
Yeah, I
barrel
guess
from
the
satellite
trash barrels
photos.
are pretty small.
Well, you know, I've read a lot of these trip reports at this point. And it seems like there's really two styles that these are primarily written in. One being like very descriptive of the writer's own journey, with lots of details about the landscapes and statements such as this is a paradise of open country with no fences or restrictions, or they're like written in this very like matter of fact like way where they're like, these are the rocks. This is the condition of them. This is like exactly what you're gonna find. We describe it like very like rock and mineral heavy, and I think that is my preference. Like, I don't. What is adventurous for you and extreme for you, and what you personally find beautiful, is very subjective, right? Like it's in the a prime example, right? You can take a place, like here in Washington, Saddle Mountain, Central Washington, petrified wood, and you can drive up to the top of that with a very capable vehicle, and it doesn't feel adventurous at all. But you could drive up there with like a Honda Civic, and it's going to feel like you're going to break your car, and it's out there. Or if you've never been outside before, it can feel really out there because you look out and you're like, oh, there's a Mattawa in the distance. So I really prefer the more scientific, rock heavy.
Yeah, it'd be good if there was a little more about the rocks and, kind of like your style of video where we go out and we do the thing and then you come back and you're like, okay, now I've got the rocks like washed. Maybe you cut some, maybe you do something with it. Like they're never like, oh, when I got home, I cut this one and it was amazing. Or like, they're just like, I picked up this big red one and I put it in my bucket. You're like, all right. Sure.
Yeah. So, did you have any other things you wanted to say about that field trip?
He says, one sentence, he says, I was literally in a field of collectible material, which did adequately match our Utah experience, where you're like, it's here, it's here, it's here. You don't have to dig, it's just right there. You're literally in a field.
Yeah, I mean, you got to kind of just you rock collecting, high grading. That's what you're doing at a lot of Utah spots.
That was all I had for that article.
So the next article, I wrote a massive amount of notes on, and that would be Minerals in Depth, Iris Agates. The secret of its rainbow is regularity.
I didn't write a massive amount on this one. I guess I didn't really... What the article was saying didn't match with what I thought was it meant for the iris agate. So iris agates, there's something that I've been very intrigued by. Like the concept behind these is very cool. I haven't managed to find any. I've tried. Someday I will. We need to go to the Yellowstone River because Yellowstone is known for its... They didn't say that in the article.
No, they didn't.
They just said Mexico.
Yeah. Brazilian agate. There's a lot. But, Okay. So, the article, in a nutshell, describes what an iris agate is, which can be almost any kind of agate provided it has radiating parallaxed banding. And when you take an agate that has a radiating parallaxed banding and you cut it really thin, like sub 2 millimeters, like ultra thin slabs, and polish both sides, when you pass a beam of light through it or like hold it up to the sun, it will break the light into the different spectrum. So like you'll see that rainbow.
But does that mean the rainbow is coming out from the agate, like when you have a prism, or the rainbow is in the agate,
like a prism?
I thought the way he was describing it, he compared it to like the color in fire opal or the play of color in opal. Like the way he was describing it, it made it seem like the color, the rainbow, is in the agate.
No,
And I know.
it's taking natural light
Yeah.
and breaking it out like a
That
prism.
didn't seem like what he was talking about at all.
I know, he should have used the word prism.
I know. I kept reading the first few paragraphs and I was like, okay, he's going to explain this. And he didn't explain it clearly.
I have some strong disagreements with this article. One thing in the article that they said that I disagree with is the research from Francis T. Jones in Berkeley, which is one of the things they cited. He stated that in an iris agate, he found fibers that can number between 10,000 to 20,000 per inch. And although I wasn't able to find his exact paper that
Yeah, it just said it was
he wrote,
presented at a conference. It wasn't necessarily published.
well, some of the stuff that he wrote was published in the American Mineralogist in 1952, and I did read that because I can read. I have access to everything from the American Mineralogist. So this is what the article said. I might paraphrase some of this. The American Mineralogist from 1952. So according to Francis T. Jones, it's a necessity of the A-axis of each fiber to grow perpendicular to the line of the fiber. So, okay, we're going to get into the fibers here. This keeps everything in phase and play of color results. So they don't really define how fiber, well, like what they mean by fibers, how they've measured them back then, or anything like that. I assume they're using an electron microscope. I'm not exactly sure. But this sent me down a big rabbit hole of research into chalcedony and the fibrous textures of this. So the fibers measured in the tens to hundreds of micrometers in length, and the conversion of micrometers to inches is 1 inch is 25,400 micrometers. So 25,400 micrometers in one inch. So if Francis Jones is stating that he found the fibers of an iris agate to be between 10,000 and 20,000 per inch, that would mean that you're seeing fibers around 1.27 micrometers.
It's pretty small.
Very, very small, which seems very unlikely since we know that the fibers are in the tens to hundreds of micrometers in length. So his idea, I think his concept here is off as far as the amount of fibers needed that have grown on the A-axis.
What does that mean?
The A crystal axis? Oh, well, okay, so crystals, you can have like an ABC or an XYZ axis, like the three axes. So, yes, my understanding of this, which we're getting a little into the weeds here, he's saying that you have to have crystal growth in a certain direction of a certain density of fibers to produce an iris agate. And I don't believe that to be true based upon what I've managed to read, which makes sense that going from 1952 to 2022, things have advanced.
Yes.
So I know for a fact that his estimation of the micrometers of the fibers required of being about 1.27 is too small. So who knows at this point? I'm not like an expert in crystallography or anything like that. It's amateur hour over here on my side of the table. Sarah's not an amateur hour.
Well, I'm not an expert of crystallology, but his recommendation of the best thing to do with an iris agate is to make it into a lampshade.
Sure.
It's like you spend all this time and like, it's so cool, here's all the scientific stuff, and then you're like, yeah, put it on a lamp. I don't know,
If I ever manage to cut and find some iris agate, I'm going to take my very thin slabs, I'm going to drill a little tiny hole in it, or glue a bale onto it and take a suction cup and hang it from the window so that the natural light coming through it allows the iris to show, to have the refraction of it.
He just really, in the article, it just seemed like he was implying the color is in the agate itself. And they're like, look at this one. It's so colorful. Look at this black and white photo. The colors are amazing on this agate. Just trust us. Like, they did not say at all, like, the light coming out of after going through the agate is the thing you're looking at. They really were like, it's the agate you're looking at. Like, I didn't get, that's what I got. That's why I was like, okay, I guess I didn't understand what an iris agate is.
I wish they would have used the word prism.
Does it work if you just put it on a lampshade? Don't you kind of have to have it at the right angle?
Really good iris agate can, you can see it from many angles. Some not so much. You have to be kind of like directly on it.
Is just putting a light bulb, like,
yeah,
a lamp.
Yeah, you can do it
with
with like
you don't have to shine it directly through.
I mean, in the perfect world, you're using like a super bright LED flashlight. That's like usually
directed.
Or sunlight can be the best. That's why a lot of people will just hang them in their window as like a pretty decoration, and the sun comes through and you catch it and you're like, oh, that's nice. But that's my understanding of it. Once again, I don't have any, but I've been looking. I've read all the things. So, but yeah, it's definitely, the color is not within it. It's not like a, if you look at a piece of turquoise, right? I mean, I guess technically the color isn't in anything. You're seeing photons bouncing off and flying into your eyeball, and your eyes interpreting.
It's more like compared to opal, the color in opal.
Yeah.
And he did compare it to opal, so that was not
good. Well, anyways, I know I'm right. So that I think we can move on from the iris agate unless you have more that you want to talk about.
I don't.
Our last article is a field trip. Calcite in Ohio. There are fine crystals in the, can't pronounce it, quarry.
I didn't write it down. There's no directions to the quarry in this article, which was kind of short. It wasn't a great article.
It was very short. It was like 4 paragraphs.
There's one picture, and they're like, yeah, that middle one, it's 7 inches long, but there was nothing for scale, so it didn't look like it was very big at all.
I think it's Pugh. P-U-G-H.
Sure.
Pugh.
Doesn't matter.
So it's basically a large commercial quarry, and which is actively being operated on the weekdays, and you used to be able to go there and collect on like the weekends, after hours, things like that. There is an excellent MnDAT listing for the quarry, like dogtooth calcite, like very terminated calcites.
Quarrying.
It's a limestone quarry. But yeah, so there's some very well-defined quality calcite crystals come out of there. I do think there's some, like a local club in that part of Ohio. They take some field trips out there, but generally speaking, like the public doesn't get to go. But it's always cool when you see rock clubs doing like exclusive visits to things like this. I mean, if we were in Ohio, I would make a visit to this quarry a priority to figure out. So if you're in Ohio, if you're an Ohio listener, find yourself a rock club and suggest you guys line up a quarry visit. Pretty much that. I think that said, unless you have something that you would like to add.
Yeah. I thought it was a good sentiment in that article where they're like, be careful, don't do anything too risky. And they said, the collector is always worth more than the collection.
It's true.
People don't think about things like that. They're not like, this thing could fall and I could die. They're just like, I gotta get that crystal.
Yeah, I mean, it brings to mind all of the tunnels that we've seen people make.
Yeah. Did you notice that for filler they put a hardness scale of facetable gem minerals in?
I did not.
They had like half a column that they needed to fill, so there's like a hardness scale. Here you go.
Yeah, I didn't notice that one.
They should do that more. I mean, that's useful.
Yeah.
You don't want to talk about the Paula Bash mine.
No, do you want to talk about it?
No, I guess not.
Well, now you have to explain
if
it.
you don't have anything to say. This was another one where it wasn't clear if, like, was it an ad? Was it an article? It was just like, oh, before Tucson, these people get together and go to this mine.
Yeah, go to the Pala mine, which is like the pink tourmaline.
And there's a couple pictures, and that was it. It wasn't like, here's the stuff, what we did there. It wasn't like, come join us. It was just like, we did a thing. And
yeah.
It was very fillery.
Very, very much so.
So hopefully that with June 1979, perhaps what we're looking at September 1979, maybe there will be quality will be slightly higher.
Let's hope so. Well, next time on the previously Rockhounding podcast, we'll be reading Rock and Gem magazine from September 1979, Cabbing with Diamonds, Field Trips, Super Silversmith, Soapstone Carving, Pigmatites, and Protecting Your Mineral Specimens.
I like how they just say field trips. Like, okay.
Next time!